Hey there, Cosmic Warriors, and welcome back to another video. And if you are new here, my name is Hannah. I'm a Western Practical Astrologer. So today we are going to be talking all about this Neptune in Pisces transit. So I want to mention firstly that there are similar videos all about Pluto in Aquarius and Pluto in Capricorn on the channel. So I will link those videos below. Basically, the layout, the structure of this series is to look at these longer transits as stories. So Neptune then has been in Pisces, its home sign, since 2011 and will be there until 2026. Now, yes, Neptune will enter Aries on the 30th of March of 2025 for a few months, but it will dip back in to Pisces and officially move out of Pisces in 2026. Okay, so what I also want to mention is before we dive in, if you would like to book a reading with me, you can head on over to my website, hannahselsewhere.com. And if you want to learn more about astrology, then go to my podcast. It's the Cosmic Check-In podcast. We're currently on season 2 and we have went through the houses. We are now on the 8th house. So yes, a lot of information available about astrology over at the Cosmic Check-In podcast. And if you would like to learn how to read your birth chart simply, you can always pick up a copy of the astrology cheat sheets I created. They are a bestseller. Right, let's get into this. Let's do this. And we're just going to take a moment, maybe look at this as a bit of an intro. I haven't decided yet if we're going to split this into 2 videos or not, but we'll see. But we're going to take a while to really dive into what Neptune in Pisces has brought forward, just some examples. Though, just to look over the dates, Neptune first entered Pisces April 2011 until August 2011. So back then, of course, the collective got a taster of the energy. And then see here that February 2012, Neptune officially entered Pisces, where it has stayed. It has stayed there and will stay there until March of 2025, where it will dip into Aries and then come back into Pisces October 2025. And then from October until January 2026, of course, Neptune will be in Pisces still. And then from January 2026, that's it. Goodbye. Goodbye, Neptune and Pisces. Neptune and Aries, that transit will officially begin. So those are the dates. But what are some themes? Some themes. What we have noticed with Neptune being in Pisces is, for example, spiritual practices resurfacing. We've seen this happening. For example, astrology, tarot, crystal usage, crystal healing, studying the chakras, law of attraction, manifestation. However, as these subjects have grown in popularity, whilst Neptune has been in Pisces, what has also happened is more confusion. Neptune, you see, is a planet that serves as a symbol of spirituality, and that's great. However, it can also serve as a symbol tied to deception, lies, and it can look at this fog, this haze, not seeing things for what they are, not seeing things very clearly. And with that, of course, what can happen is manipulation can occur. So we've also seen more confusion. We have seen greater lies and deception. So consider people who use spiritual practices as a way to manipulate, as a way to fulfill their own egos, right? The thing about this is we can look at spiritual practices indicating, okay, what about the ego? How can we maybe be a bit more selfless rather than selfish? But that can get twisted. And we've seen this. We've seen this. Think about con artists, deceivers, people just pretending to be something that they're not. The lack of understanding and the lack of awareness, and many being misguided and many being misled using spiritual practices. This sub-generation claims to know the meaning of existence, but we have to think here about with what credentials. With what credentials? Because in today's world, I suppose anybody can just turn on a camera and say, hey, I'm such a spiritual person. Da, 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 da. So these questions have been coming up, and it can be a slippery slope. It can. It can be a slippery slope if we don't consider facts, data, evidence, and science. The thing is that science is also important. The facts and the data is also important. And then what can also occur from this is being unknowingly misguided, but equally unknowingly misguiding other people. So we've seen the rise of psychics, mediums, clairvoyants. But how, and this is just something to consider, how are such things measured? But then again, and this is really my way of trying to get you to think about these themes. But who is to say such people are wrong and they cannot be trusted? Are they genuine people who care? So we do see that, yes, when it comes to spiritual practices and sharing intuitive gifts, for example, there are many genuine people out there who care, who have been practicing, who have been studying, who are able to combine their research with what they're doing, and they're skilled, they're crafted in what they do, they're recognized in what they do. But it's still a question of here, are the genuine people being given a bad name due to the con artists, due to the ones who do manipulate and use spiritual practices as a way to gain power and recognition? So, following on from this, we've also noticed the rise of narcissism, gaslighting, victimization, undiagnosed mental illnesses as well, projection as well has really occurred. Therapy has also been discussed more openly. However, the thing about this is we've also noticed more excuses for bad behavior. It's sort of like, oh, well, I have this, so I can do this. Oh, it's not me, it's my da-da-da-da. Insert whatever label, whatever title you want to have. We've noticed this. So what happens then is martyrdom, victimhood. Oh, feel sorry for me, feel sorry for me. Okay. Then we've also noticed the dissolving of the ego by spiritual gurus. Many spiritual gurus saying, oh, you need to dissolve the ego. Oh, you need to transcend this. You need to transcend that. Da, 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 da. Interesting. Even using the likes of law of attraction and manifestation in ways where it is just about filling their own pockets. So I'm trying to be clear when I say this, that when it comes to these practices that I bring up, right, there are genuine people who care. There are people who have been practicing, studying, they know their stuff, they care about service and supporting other people. But there are still other people out there who cannot be trusted. So who are we to believe? These are the themes of Neptune and Pisces, is what I'm trying to get at. Who can be trusted? But equally, This transit has ushered in support, healing, health professionals. So, as I say, these are just a few examples that I wanted to draw from, and I wanted to get you to think. But also, I want to mention that Saturn, Saturn, the planet of time, the planet of karma and maturity, Saturn has been in Pisces since March of 2023. So, Saturn coming into this sign, it's been very interesting because what I think Saturn has ushered in is a lot of truth, a lot of honesty, establishing healthy boundaries, people being able to see through the fog, to see things a bit more clearly, to not be as sabotaged or as deceived. So, healthy boundaries, but also emotional maturity. And emotional maturity does require taking accountability, taking responsibility for ourselves. So instead of continuously being in this victimhood, it's everybody else's fault, etc., being able to look within ourselves. And it's that emotional honesty. But equally, this is about showing healthy skepticism, being skeptical, being cautious when we can tied to these spiritual practices. We've also been able to get a grasp on what is going on. Plus, I think that, and I've mentioned this in a previous video before, I think it was the Pluto and Aquarius video where I went through the Saturn signs and the Uranus signs and the Neptune signs during the transit. But we've noticed the rise of loneliness, right? This loneliness epidemic, right? Pisces is a sign of solitude, but it's also a sign of isolation. And I especially think that this has soared since the lockdowns, right? Think about how Saturn was in Aquarius and then Saturn came into Pisces, and we've seen this loneliness epidemic. We see many YouTube videos of people saying, I have no friends, I'm not in a relationship, I don't see the point in being in a relationship. Okay. So we see the suffering. We see these hard lessons to do with loneliness. We see these hard lessons to do with suffering or pain. Suffering when we unknowingly take responsibility for other people's emotions too. We unknowingly take responsibility for other people's emotions. So maybe this is something to consider. It's how much we take on from other people. And we have seen this. We have seen this time and time again over the past few years. Many people saying, no, I need to have healthy boundaries. I need to separate myself a little bit from my parents who are unhealthy, from my siblings who are unhealthy. I need space for me. And great, right? That I feel is a strength. I think that it's important to recognize our emotional security, our emotional needs in this way. Okay. And also, like I was trying to say earlier, just seeing the reality, seeing through distortions. I think Saturn has ushered this in. But we still cannot deny, I do think we can't deny that with Saturn coming into Pisces, there's still this feeling of confinement. And what I'm getting from this is drowning, suffocating, feeling just really stuck. Okay. We have also recognized here that many people do feel stuck. Many people feel lost. Many people feel like, what is the point? I just want to give up. And honestly, I think when we combine this with the bigger picture, when we consider how Uranus is in Taurus, right? There's the sextile between Neptune and Uranus, Uranus being this other sub-generational planet. We've noticed the cost of living. We've noticed just the housing prices soaring. We've noticed security struggles, security battles for people. We've noticed the lack of job consistency, the instability when it comes to jobs, when it comes to finances and money, right? We've noticed also, and maybe a part of this is being ushered in by Pluto in Aquarius, right? Again, another generational planet, the main generational planet, but Pluto in Aquarius ushering in these themes to do with technology. And that's a big fear for people, because think about how already we're noticing, due to the rise of technology, many people's jobs are being X'd out. No, don't need you anymore. Yeah. So what are those people supposed to do about their livelihoods? So again, we bring it back to Saturn and Pisces. And yeah, a lot of people are feeling just like hopeless. This is it. Saturn and Pisces is sort of saying, I feel hopeless. I feel directionless. Almost like you're lost at sea. You're lost at sea. Where do I go? There's no direction. There's no light. Where's the lighthouse? Where is that lighthouse? You consider that in terms of Neptune, right? Neptune being in Pisces, we see the greater distortions and the challenges, the fog that happens. So whilst sure, there is a side to Saturn and Pisces blended in with Neptune a little bit, where it says, okay, it's time to face the reality of the situation. It's time to see through these distortions. But we still can't deny that when we consider people's experiences, their challenges, their struggles are very, very real for them. And it's a bit more complex. Now, what I further want to mention is I want to talk about this 29th degree, because what's going to happen is Neptune is going to reach, well, let me just double check. If I'm pretty sure Neptune has already reached the 29th degree. I'm pretty sure it has. No, okay. Neptune has not quite reached the 29th degree, but it will. It will. It'll reach the 29th degree around February, March time. More so March, I think, 2025. Why is this important? Because before Neptune enters Aries on the 30th of March, just for a couple of months, right? Neptune will be at that 29th degree. And the 29th degree is an anaretic degree. It's a critical degree. What does this mean? It's a degree of revision. It's a degree of assessment. It's a degree of evaluation. So as we really start to build up to Neptune's entrance into Aries, March 2025, right? Can you maybe, and maybe this is just some practical use here for you, but can you maybe take some time to honestly evaluate where you've been, what's happened for you over the past 13 years or so? This recap of Neptune and Pisces. Look back, what have you learned? And you know what it is, folks? This is perhaps a great segue. It's a great segue as we go through the signs, because the whole point of this video is to read Neptune in Pisces as a bit of a story to take you back. I'm going to take you back and I'm going to build on things. And I also want to mention that the themes that I just talked about, those are more collective themes. This is not to suggest that everybody is doing this or acting like this, behaving in this way. The themes I mentioned there are more based on observations I've noticed from my own research, things happening online, people I talk to, etc. Okay, with that being said, let's go through the signs. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. First up, then, we have Aries. Yes, Aries, let's explore this transit for you. And we're just going to break this down. First of all, right, Neptune has been transiting your 12th house since 2011, about that. And so the overall themes here for you, Aries, is so much about spiritual exploration. Many of you, Aries, have been on what feels like a spiritual journey where you have experienced many awakening moments, enlightening moments. Perhaps you've also felt a greater call, a greater pull to be behind the scenes, to take care of yourselves. Maybe a lot of you have been in therapy. You've been working on yourselves. You've been addressing your fears. You've been addressing your phobias, any paranoias. You've also, I just think in this way, right? You've been working on your mental health, your mental well-being. And you've also been addressing your dreams, exploring your wildest dreams, your visions, your fantasies. A lot of this stuff for you, Aries, has been a journey into the unknown, a journey into the unknown. And that within itself can be quite scary, really. It can be a scary thing to just sort of surrender, to embrace, hey, you know what, universe, whatever you have in store for me, I let go. What do you got? What do you have for me? But at the same time, I think that such a journey requires great bravery. And you have been brave. You have. You're a sign of bravery. You're a sign of courage. But you see, this has been such an unfolding of the unconscious, pulling back the layers bit by bit. A lot of healing has happened. Suffering has also happened. Where you suffer, where you feel lost, where you feel stuck, the things that you battle with, especially the subconscious stuff you battle with, the unknown, the self-undoing to do with the 12th house, how you might even be getting in your way. Maybe you've really had to address your own disillusionments, your own tendencies of not being honest with yourself, actually, and having to face the reality of the situation. Maybe many of you Aries have had to address an addiction, some addictive tendencies, for example. Right. So now we've addressed this overarching theme, and just even to, I want to say as well, we could look at this as you exploring hidden talents and gifts tied to your intuition, tied to spirituality, tarot, astrology. Maybe also a big part of this is surrendering to a greater power. Yes, you've been addressing these things too. Maybe even really drawing from archetypes and mythology, drawing from your imagination, working with symbols. A lot of movies have been consumed, storytelling, novels, research, writing. A lot of meditation has been happening behind the scenes. Greater times for solitude, but also, hey, we could look at this as moments of isolation, moments of, I'm really struggling with this. And maybe a part of the challenge here for you has been trying to maybe ask for help, as one example. Okay, so yes, let's now consider Jupiter. So Jupiter, of course, acts as the dispositor because Jupiter rules Pisces. Right. So Jupiter was in your sign from April until June of 2011. Quick side note, these dates you see before you, there are going to be overlaps. There are going to be overlaps. Look at the retrogrades. So the information I'm going to say, timings of things could be off, just to highlight that. So that time period for you, April to June of 2011, maybe that is when you did set off on some kind of new journey. Jupiter was in your first house. Maybe you had some new aims, new goals, new aspirations, things that you wanted to achieve. Maybe travel was a part of it, Aries. Then June 2011 until June 2012, Jupiter went into the second house. And so maybe for you, you had some aspirations or desires to do with your physical security. Maybe you were quite idealistic, or maybe you were quite wishful. There were some dreams and visions and fantasies tied to your finances and your livelihood back then, Aries. Then June 2012 until June 2013, that perhaps was when you really set out to explore more knowledge and you wanted to educate yourself more. Maybe many of you Aries went to university, or you joined a program. You wanted just to learn more. You wanted to expand your mind. Maybe you moved house. Maybe you relocated. Then June 2013 until July 2014, home stuff, family stuff came up. Honestly, that part of the transit could have brought up a lot of subconscious fears, or maybe family challenges came up. Maybe you wanted to set yourself free from a family situation. There was just a lot of family confusion, and you needing to feel like you could support yourself. Then July 2014 until August 2015, that part of the transit, I think, could have been a really creative, explorative time for you. So much about your passions and your hobbies coming through. Then August 2015 until September 2016, well, Jupiter was in your 6th, opposing this Neptune influence. So that period could have been quite a challenging time, honestly. Challenging in terms of, what is my path? What is my direction? What do I want when it comes to work and service? And what is my place here? What is my place here? But I think it was still an opportunity for you to go after, well, new opportunities, new experiences tied to work. Maybe a part of it was about refining your skills, refining your gifts and your talents. Then September 2016 until October 2017, we could have seen for you, Aries, maybe getting married, committed relationships. It could even be that you wanted to live more of a single life. You just wanted to be a bit more free there. Perhaps you explored your options. You weighed out your options when it came to relationships. October 2017 until November 2018, Jupiter was in the 8th. So that part of the transit really invited this investigation, this look into your subconscious, this look into yourself. I also just want to mention here, of course, this goes without saying, I understand that everybody is at a different, stage of their lives. And this information perhaps is not going to relate as much, to someone who's maybe a child who may have been born about 5 years ago and things like that. So just keep that in mind. Still, we could have looked at this as you seeking new opportunities to do with your psychology, to do with divination, the occult, or new opportunities to do with shared financial planning, such as you getting a house with your significant other, just as one example, right? Then we come into November 2018 until December 2019. And so this part of the transit welcomed maybe greater exploration, traveling to unfamiliar territories, being quite expansive and open to change. Maybe there was some challenge, actually, because of that square to Neptune. There was a challenging moment for you about, what do I believe in? Where do I go from here? Maybe your beliefs really did shift and change back then, especially tied to spirituality, religion, your philosophical views, your worldviews. Then to December 2019 until 2020, we see here with Capricorn, right, the 10th house influence. Well, perhaps many of you Aries, you went to work. You strived for great success. You really wanted to expand. You really wanted to grow in your knowledge and to be recognized for your knowledge, or it's that you just wanted to take things to the next level. Maybe also, a part of it could have been about needing some time away from work, or needing to just be in solitude as you reflected upon work a great deal, or you reflected upon, what is it that I want in terms of my next step? What is my next big move here? Then we come to December 2020 until 2021. And it's interesting because Jupiter was in both the 11th and 12th for you. There was this time period where perhaps you strongly considered, what is my place within society? What is my place? And what is it that I want from my group dynamics? What about my friendships? And then equally, a lot of healing, I think, happened. It's almost like you wanted to explore, okay, well, friendship wise, what is happening for me there? But then you also wanted to dive into the very meaning of things, right? The meaning of your emotions and why you do the things you do and why you attract certain people. And the fascinating thing, I suppose, about this is whenever we go into the next stage with December 2021 until 2022, well, there was that Neptune Jupiter conjunction that happened. That happened April of 2022 in Pisces, starting a new 12-year cycle within your Pisces house. So perhaps April 2022 was really like a wake up call, or it was a time of deep reflection, deep contemplation, where you couldn't unsee what you saw. It was just like oh my goodness, the visions are crazy. The dreams I'm having are wild. I cannot go, I can't unsee what I've seen, basically. And that could have also welcomed maybe this spiritual change. Spiritual growth could really have amplified for you. Something came through for you there. Then we move on to, of course, Jupiter going back round, right? Right. So now Jupiter's starting another cycle because it's back in Aries. So we think here about the Aries part with 2022 until May of 2023. And this, so imagine it like the newfound perspectives came through, those spiritual perspectives, especially with the 12th house activation. Then you walk different, you carry yourself different, your confidence is different, how you approach new situations is different. This all depends, I think, upon what those spiritual insights were for you, right? Then naturally that also feeds, that leads, right? Remember, it's part of this cycle, this new 12-year cycle. It leads into that of Taurus. Jupiter then goes into the second house again. And so maybe, of course, it's like, right, I'm still considering new opportunities and possibilities to do with my finances and my income, but I'm doing it from that place of deeper spiritual awareness this time. Then again, Gemini, the third house influence, and we're here today. This is where we are now. So many of you Aries, I think, are at a stage where you're really considering, right, you know what? Yeah, I've refined my spiritual gift, or I've refined my intuition, or I've been doing a lot of inner healing, inner work, and there's greater curiosity on my part. But now I want to speak from that place. I want to speak in a way where it feels like I'm aligned. I'm aligned with those lessons, with those spiritual meanings, those deeper layers of myself that I explored. And of course, to end Neptune and Pisces, well, we come back around to Jupiter being in your fourth. Keeping in mind that the dates you see before you, it's about the combination of both Neptune and Pisces with Jupiter. So Neptune, of course, will enter Aries March of 2025 for just a short period of time. But we're going to talk more about Neptune and Aries in another video. Still, when we combine this, we see here you possibly setting out to experience growth with relation to family, with relation to setting up a home. Whether this be having another child, whether this be getting a house of your own, or you really focusing upon your emotional needs and your emotional security, ending Neptune in Pisces for you is really about how you can support yourself. This journey, you see, for you, Aries, especially when we combine Saturn, it has been such a journey tied to emotional resilience. Knowing that you can weather the storm, even during times of struggle, times of suffering, times of hardship. This is so much about your ability to overcome adversity behind the scenes, making those moves out of the public eye. And it's going to be so interesting to witness you when Neptune and Saturn both enter your sign throughout 2025. More information to come about those transits, of course. But all in all, for you, Aries, a big overarching theme, I think, has been about your spiritual development, healing, letting go, surrendering to the unknown. Thank you so much, Aries. And now we're going to move on to Taurus. Okay, Taurus. What has the Neptune in Pisces transit ushered in for you since about 2011? First up, here we notice that Neptune has been in your 11th all this time. So many themes to do with your collective aims and your collective visions and what you want for the future. Perhaps many of you Taurus out there, you've been making certain moves to do with your future aims. You've been visualizing what you want and perhaps acting accordingly. But then we also see possible fears. We also see wishful thinking. And we also notice not really seeing things very clearly, being overly idealistic about the future. And so, because of those unrealistic, perhaps, expectations, maybe in some capacity, you have been disappointed. And that disappointment perhaps has been showing up within groups, clubs, teams, organizations. However, we also notice these patterns and themes to do with unity, connection, especially on a spiritual level. So to connect spiritually with others. This is so much about the people you connect with, the people that you see as, you know what, yeah, we're pretty like-minded. Our aims are pretty similar. Perhaps our values are quite similar. So in a way, you've been aligning yourself with like-minded individuals who may believe in the same things you do or who want the same things you do. Then I also see this as you being a part of some sort of spiritual group or a movement or a cause, maybe being extra charitable throughout this transit, extra giving, extra generous. And we could also look at this as you striving to be a part of some sort of club or community or group where people are quite poetic and artistic and creative. And maybe there's a part of you that gets lost in that, right? Lost in this fantasy world, so to speak, this artistic, beautiful world. Maybe a big part of the dream for you is about fantasy. Your collective aims and your wishes for the future are perhaps even about compassion, unifying the collective, addressing the suffering and the pain of the collective, wanting to heal, wanting to help other people, serve other people, getting out into your communities and making a difference. Naturally, with Saturn also being in your 11th over the past couple of years, I mean, maybe you really have been putting plans into place. However, we are also noticing with Saturn here the perhaps levels of desperation or sorrow or suffering and pain. And it's like, oh my gosh, I idealized that or I thought it was this way, but then waking up to the reality, to the harshness, maybe in some capacity feeling a bit lost or stuck. What I'm kind of getting from this is just wishing you could take the pain of the world away and then being hit faced with the reality that in actuality you can't. You can't. And that there's only so much you can do. There's only so much you can do. So maybe noticing how much you carry, right? How much you carry. So as all of these themes have been coming up for you over the past number of years, right, since 2011, we also want to explore what Jupiter is doing, what Jupiter has been doing. So Jupiter was in your 12th April until June of 2011. So to open the transit, maybe you were going through quite a lot. Maybe you were experiencing this internal dread or this, oh my gosh, what the heck am I doing with my life? Where am I going from here? What I want from groups? What is the next step for me? So a big shift to do with your identity. And then June 2011 until June 2012, maybe this is where we saw a glimpse of you wanting to restart, right? You wanting to maybe create a different life for yourself, maybe wanting to connect with different friends, different like-minded people, wanting to sort of spread your wings, so to speak. And maybe you identified with a completely different mission. But you see, that involved you changing your perspective or really setting out on a new journey to do with your values, your desires, and your security. Then June 2012 until June 2013, Jupiter was in your second. So maybe this was when you started to be quite varied or you tried different ideas out. Maybe you were extra curious or inquisitive and you wanted to explore many different talents and skills. And perhaps this within itself was a part of the future that you wanted to create for yourself. You sort of thought, well, if it is that I dream of this different future, if I want to create a different future for myself, then I need to also have enough materials and finances and things like that. So there was more variety, more curiosity, trying things out, being open to change, perhaps more so. And then June 2013 until July 2014, Jupiter went into the third for you. So this is perhaps where we notice you educating yourself upon sort of more spiritual subjects, spiritual topics, maybe taking things to the next level when it came to a spiritual group you were a part of, or maybe studying more so about mother figures or motherhood or family dynamics, maybe trying to understand your own family dynamics a little bit more. And then that within itself contributed to the whole group mentality, to communities and like minds. Then July 2014 until August 2015, with Jupiter in your fourth, well, that could have really brought up a lot of interesting discoveries, right? A lot of that was about self-development, self-discovery, addressing those family dynamics more from a place of, was I seen? Was I recognized? Maybe also a part of that transit involved you being quite creative within your home or setting out on this journey, so to speak, to create a better life for yourself at home, to seek more opportunities at home, just making changes where you felt recognized, you felt seen. You could be creative, you could be childlike. Then August 2015 until September 2016, Jupiter was in your fifth. Now, with that, we still see here those themes to do with the inner child, childlikeness, fun, play, but we also notice the criticisms associated with all of that. And possibly you addressing your own criticisms or harsh judgments about yourself. Or we could look at this as you taking some more time to really focus on self-care and your routines. And with that opposition to the 11th, Yeah, I think what could have happened then with the Jupiter Neptune opposition was this conversation about, am I being honest with myself when it comes to grips and clubs? Do I feel like I'm being valued? Do I feel like I'm being seen and noticed and liked, enjoyed for who I am? Then September 2016 until October 2017, Jupiter was in your sixth. So that was a time when I think you started to let me just see what works here in terms of work and time for myself. That work life balance was maybe really brought into focus. And a lot of that could have been for your health. So, health reasons, yeah, focusing on things like even diet and fitness, your energy, your productivity levels, your stress levels, all those things could have really came up through this lens of balance, of course. And, before we do go any further, again, and I feel like I'll need to repeat this for every single sign, but the dates that you see before you, these are estimates. Just remember the retrogrades. There are overlaps to these dates. Just remember that. Look into this for yourself. And I do also understand that we are all different ages, and we're at different points in our lives, basically. Okay, so moving on. Jupiter then was in your seventh from October 2017 until November 2018. I'm wondering to myself, is it Taurus that around that time you got into? I mean, it could have been more of a serious relationship. It could have been that you wanted to take things to the next level within a relationship. Hey, that could also be the case with the Virgo transit. Maybe something romantic started back then for you. Still, the Scorpio part of this could be where there was greater intimacy, connection, and vulnerability involved within those one-to-one relationships. Hey, maybe this is even about close friendships, close relationships, but there were opportunities, right? And when we consider a bit of that trine to the 11th house, we could also look at this as you feeling spiritually connected. Maybe you did get introduced to new people, and maybe they were into the occult, they were into more esoteric things, or it's that you really felt like you could start to trust people in some way. Okay, so November 2018 until December 2019, this is where I feel like for some Taurians out there, you took the time to explore your deeper layers, your unconscious, maybe tied to freedom and adventure. Maybe a part of it was diving into the unknown related to your beliefs and your worldviews. It's like, why do I believe this about the world? How was I conditioned to believe this? Those themes could have really been pulled back and looked at and transformed in some way, shape, or form. And then December 2019 until 2020, with the ninth house activation, maybe this is where you started to take your higher education a bit more seriously, or you really became more focused, more disciplined about a higher educational program or a course, or just higher learning in general there. Maybe also a part of that involved publishing or just doing more research, wanting to gain deeper understanding. And hey, perhaps those themes also strongly tied in with the grip dynamics that we talk about, because there's still that sextile between the ninth and the 11th. All right. Then December 2020, coming into 2021, Jupiter was in the 10th and the 11th. So that period for you could have really brought a lot up to the surface to do with, okay, well, what am I doing? Where am I working? What am I good at? What have I achieved? What have I accomplished? What does success mean to me? What does status mean to me? Where do I go from here? All these sorts of questions, perhaps existential questions, really came up. And maybe a part of it was sort of like, this is so unfair how the world works like this societally. It's just crazy to me, right? All those questions, maybe just overall, your career could have been brought into focus. Your successes could have been brought into focus, your long-term goals. And then naturally, what we notice is that April 2022, ushered in a new 12-year cycle in your 11th because Jupiter connected with Neptune. There was the conjunction. So around that time, maybe there was like a spiritual awakening or some form of enlightenment to do with grips. Maybe it was sort of like, aha, this is my place. This is where I feel called. This is the path. And this is where I'm being guided. I surrender to this. I'm embracing the unknown within this grip situation. So from that place, right, Jupiter then, of course, goes back into the 12th and starts this whole new cycle for you, right? Because we started from Aries in the 12th and now we're back to Aries again. So we almost see this as, okay, I'm having these realizations about grips and clubs and teams, organizations I'm a part of, my future aims. I'm having these realizations. Now I'm actually going to go back into hiding, so to speak, go back into solitude, and I'm going to start this process. I'm going to kind of reflect upon, right, what is my individual place within all of this? How do I associate myself with this? What is my identity here saying? What do I want? So a lot of self-discovery stuff coming through. Then May 2023 until 2024, Jupiter back into your sign Taurus. So from that place, then it's like, oh, well, a new chapter, a new beginning. But the new chapters and beginnings are somehow tied in with those realizations to do with grips and teams, you see. So almost like you were starting afresh in a way, because the first house is about new beginnings. Maybe starting afresh was somehow tied to security, your resources, whether that be negatively or positively, depends. But then we arrive to today, and Jupiter is in Gemini, right? And the dates that you see, of course, some overlaps. Do consider Neptune will go into Aries. But we arrive to today, and Jupiter is back in the second. So I think, especially when we consider Saturn, right? Saturn is also in your 11th at this point, and maybe what you're experiencing right now, Taurus, is sort of like a time off or a challenge to do with your finances. Maybe it's not so easy to kind of be more flexible and adaptable and creative about things. Maybe there's some blocks, right? There's some creative blocks. There's some blocks about finances slightly. But you're going to notice that as time goes on, things are going to become more clearer, right? Jupiter is not going to be in Gemini forever. Saturn's not going to be in Pisces forever. So I think what's been important to keep in mind is for you to just keep practicing, or for you to be open. It's like, okay, well, you know what? I'm not going to put all of my eggs in one basket. I'm going to be open to other forms of discovery and other opportunities when it comes to my resources and my security. Then we have Jupiter, of course, into Cancer, and Jupiter does enter Cancer June of 2025. But again, I'm putting these dates in here because of Neptune in combination with Jupiter, right? So Neptune in Pisces, Jupiter in Cancer in this case. So with Jupiter being in Cancer in the third, we're going to end this transit from a place of, I think, communication clarity. I think it's about even your poetic gifts, your spiritual writing gifts, or listening to your inner voice, especially related to family and home and comfort and your emotional needs. Thank you so much, Taurus. And now on to Gemini. All right, Gemini, let's talk about this Neptune in Pisces transit for you. What has really unfolded since 2011? Well, first thing is, Gemini, you have been trying out different roles and positions, I think, to do with your career. I think, yes, we can look at this as you having some visions and dreams tied to your career, right? But I think there's still that fluidity. There's still that adaptability, that flexibility tied to Pisces, where, for instance, maybe you thought to yourself, hey, you know what? I want to follow this certain path in my life to do with career, ambition, and success. But it's almost as if Neptune has had other plans. Neptune has dissolved perhaps certain versions of yourself, or it's that you've been trying to see what aligns with you, especially more so from a spiritual place or an emotional place, an intuitive place. And we see then as well just how varied you've been, how open you've been to change. And we could also perhaps look at this as you being quite interested in the collective unconscious or exploring the unknown, maybe exploring the unknown facets of yourself, or using perhaps divination or spiritual practices as a way to help others, as a way to support other people. We could even look at this as many of you Gemini getting into the arts or some creative role, being in film and media, right? Really being in front of the camera or possibly working behind the scenes, of course. We think about disguises and costumes and makeup and the glamour. So perhaps for many of you, you've really taken advantage of social media as a way to, right? As a way to advertise, promote yourself, market yourself. And we also notice then this confusion in some ways, perhaps deception in some ways, actually to do with managers and bosses. Maybe there's a part of you that doesn't quite see a certain role or a position clearly, or it's that you don't see yourself very clearly within that role or position. And it's almost like you need other people to guide you or to sort of say to you, "Do you know what? Yes, you are doing amazing, or you belong here." Because there could be these feelings of feeling lost or a bit directionless. But there's also the ability to flow, to see where you feel the most aligned spiritually. And maybe this has been quite the process for you. Maybe it has been a mix of sort of having to step behind the scenes, to be in solitude, to do the breath work, to surrender, practice inner peace, but then equally pushing yourself, seeing what else you can do there. Maybe working with symbolism heavily, bringing out your hidden talents, bringing out your hidden gifts, using your imagination perhaps as a way to uh, help other people, or blending imagination with your career. And perhaps with Saturn being in your 10th over the past couple of years, Gemini, a lot has really been coming through to do with career blockages, resistance to change in some way, feeling like an uphill battle, right? Where you're trying everything you can to sort of maybe make things work, or maybe you're just experiencing setbacks and challenges. But this has also been your call to action, Gemini. It's been your opportunity to push through, to work with this energy, to step up to the challenge, to come up with solutions, practical solutions that can be really useful and effective for you, especially within the sphere, the realm of career and your reputation and success. So, with that being said, let's now consider this journey of Jupiter through these houses for you. And before we get into this, I want to highlight that these are just more estimates, right? Think about the overlaps. There are definitely overlaps when we explore the dates. And I do also recognize that everybody is on their own journey in terms of their age. Okay. April until June of 2011, or sorry, 2011. 2011. I'm so used to saying 2020. Yes, 2011. We started Neptune in Pisces with Jupiter in your 11th. So maybe what really came through for you back then was this question of, where do I fit in? Where do I belong? What is the grip I'm a part of? And how do I want to lead within grips? How do I wish to assert myself within grips? So opportunities could have really came up to the surface for you. Opportunities for growth within grip settings, within organization settings, companies, firms, teamwork, building together with others. Then June 2011 until June 2012, Jupiter was in your 12th. So that part of the transit perhaps was more of a relaxation period. Maybe a part of it sort of felt a bit, it's almost like you felt slightly disconnected in a way. Could have been from your body in some way. And I don't mean that in an extreme way, but I just mean maybe what was important for you to do was to come back to yourself, was to ground yourself, was to practice patience, to go behind the scenes and maybe consider, okay, well, what do I want with my life? A lot of reevaluating could have happened for you. And then we connect that back in with the 10th. It was sort of like, where do I go from here? What is my career path? What do I enjoy? And then June 2012 until June 2013, Jupiter was in your sign, Gemini. It's almost like you took flight back then. You took flight in some way. Maybe you put in the effort to get that job, get that position, land that role. A new beginning happened, a new chapter happened to do with relationships and connecting and networking and socializing, all that stuff. Marketing could have been a part of this, advertising and research could have been a part of this. Just being open to the new. Then June 2013 until July 2014, Jupiter was in your second. And so this part of the transit, I think, honestly, for many of you Gemini, when we especially blend this a little bit with how Neptune being in the 10th, right? Maybe there was a big call, so to speak, a spiritual awakening, so to speak, to do with your resources and your finances. And you thought, you know what? Yeah, I need to think about providing for my family and my loved ones. And I need to set my life up in this way where I can support them, I can provide for them. Maybe there were some interesting developments and opportunities that came up to do with family relocating, your home, right? Your living situation. Combine that, of course, in terms of materials and spending and budgeting and saving and all that stuff. Then July 2014 until August until 2015, Jupiter was in your third. So I think Jupiter in your third was a good way for you to be quite creative about your writing and speaking, to grow in your confidence actually when it came to your writing. What was your message back then? I think that was quite an eye-opening thing for you to consider. Well, what am I interested in? What do I enjoy learning about? That curiosity, right? It's that curiosity with you, Gemini. Then August 2015 until September 2016, Jupiter was in your fourth. Okay, that period I think was I would say it was quite challenging. It was quite challenging because on one side of this, you were trying to be a bit more practical and a bit more methodical within your home, amongst family. But then there was also this other side of it where you had many visions and dreams and ideals about your career path. And don't get me wrong, I still think at the same time it was an opportunity for you to weigh things out, to find maybe greater balance, or to see, well, by me attending to my family and by me attending to my home and my living situation, that can set me up. But then equally, by you maybe exploring the unknown within your career, within your profession, maybe that was what in some ways supported you to make certain changes, improvements to your home. It's interesting to consider because now the nodes are in Pisces and Virgo in your 10th and 4th houses. So yeah, there's something that you're going to be cleaning up, so to speak, over the next couple of years to do with your living situation, interestingly. But anyway, moving on. September 2016 until October 2017, Jupiter was in your fifth. Maybe for many of you Gemini, you got into a new relationship, you had your first child, or you were very curious about your interests and your hobbies, maybe somehow related to art and culture and music. Maybe a part of it was about having fun with your significant other, being quite lighthearted together, just enjoying yourself, going on dates, all the romance stuff, the love stuff to do with the fifth house. And then October 2017 until November 2018, Jupiter was in your sixth. All right, so that was certainly a time period which was very work heavy. Your work ethic was highlighted, your productivity was highlighted, but oh my goodness, going to the extremes, being very intense about things, very determined, having to make harsh decisions, serious decisions about your role. Oh, a lot came up, I think, a lot of focus. Then November 2018 until December 2019, of course, Jupiter was in your seventh. And so maybe for some of you Gemini, it was about freedom and getting away from a certain relationship. But for others of you, it was about drawing closer and maybe taking things to the next level within a relationship. I mean, this could have been an engagement, for example, or hoping for an engagement, or this could have been wanting to broaden your horizons with a significant other, maybe traveling together, relocating to a different country, all those things. Just, yeah, new opportunities, expansion and growth tied to relationships. Then December 2019 until 2020, Jupiter was in your eighth. So this part of the transit could have really brought up a lot of unconscious fears and resistance to change. Maybe stuff to do with intimacy came up, maybe certain things you had to look at and face within yourself about intimacy, about trust and control and domineering behaviors, possibly. But it was also an opportunity for you to become, let's just say, quite sensible and responsible, to take responsibility for your own emotions, so to speak, to look at those deeper facets of yourself. Then we move on to December 2020 until 2021. And there was that Jupiter transit in the ninth and the 10th houses, right? So this part of this transit could have really highlighted a lot of training and higher education and new programs and new courses and taking on a completely different role or being open to a new role. Or a lot of this was about success and status and reputation and what you want to be known for. And then what do? We come into, oh, and by the way, something new came up, right? There was a difference, there was a change, there was innovation because Aquarius was involved in that. And then what do? We come to April 2022, and both Jupiter and Neptune conjunct in your 10th house, kickstarting a new 12-year cycle. So that was very much a rise. That was a calling. That was a, right, what is the next step? I've got to do this. I've got to answer this call. I can't deny it within myself anymore. I need to do something here on social media. I need to do something here about my career path. I want to change something about my experience, about my reality, about what I want for my future. Oh, yes. A very enlightening time period. Then we move on to December 2022 until May 2023. And Jupiter kickstarts a whole new cycle, right? We go back to Aries. And so what do? You start to regain your strength or your power in some way, shape, or form, very much tied to career, success, your reputation, what you want to be known for. So it's almost like starting this process again from that place based on what came up for you throughout that period, right? With the conjunction, April 2022. And so maybe this kind of indicated an extra bit of grit and determination. This like, yeah, this game face, let's do this. Let's start a community. Let's join a community. Let's do the thing that I'm passionate about. Let's make those moves when it comes to friendships and teams and groups. Yes, I can do this. May 2023 until 2024, then Jupiter comes back into the 12th. And so you're back into this time period of solitude. Let's slow it down. You know what? Yeah, let's slow it down. I want to slow it down, take in more knowledge, take in the downloads, listen to my intuition. What is truly coming through for me when it comes to my career path, or when it comes to accomplishments and achievements? Even if this is not about career, this could be about purpose, right? So these ideals about purpose and these new visions and dreams about purpose with Neptune in the 10th, Jupiter in your 12th comes back around, and it's like, let me sit with this. Let me be patient enough with myself. And where are we now? We are at a point where Jupiter is back in your first. And of course, with Saturn in the position it's in, you have been experiencing delays and setbacks and obstacles to do with this next chapter for yourself, right? To do with career changes, to do with progress in terms of career growth and expansion, or identity growth and expansion in some way, shape, or form. Thinking about goals and aims tied to the first house, even. But you're also learning mighty lessons about longevity, adversity, what it is that you really want, right? Being emotionally honest with yourself. And at the same time, Jupiter in your first has been massive for educating yourself, maybe making changes to your body, changes to your identity. Again, from this place of spiritual insight, deeper spiritual insight that was kickstarted April 2022. Then we arrive to Jupiter entering Cancer. The dates you see is more about Neptune and Pisces mixed with Jupiter in Gemini and Cancer, right? I just want to say that because Neptune will be moving into Aries for a short period of time this year. But ending the transit, what do we have? We have Jupiter in your second. And I think that's really golden. I think this could truly look at the successes and the recognition and the self-esteem upgrades and just feeling, do you know what? Yes, I feel good about this. I feel like this is the path for me. This is the way forward for me. And I'm so glad that I have went through this journey. Hopefully you can look back and you can just acknowledge these overarching themes to do with progress, professional progress, especially, and also how you've changed spiritually, how maybe you've aligned more spiritually to do with success and status and reputation and things. Maybe a part of it is about letting go or surrendering or not attaching so much to certain outcomes, certain aims, if you will. And maybe a part of it too will involve your family, making decisions when it comes to your career, when it comes to purpose, but based on your family's needs. And if you don't have a family, right, if you don't perhaps have children of your own, for example, it's still about your emotional needs. Thank you so much, Gemini. And now on to Cancer. Right, Cancer. Let's talk about this Neptune in Pisces transit for you since 2011. And before we get into this, just a couple of things I want to note. The dates you see before you, remember overlaps, retrogrades, all of that stuff, okay? Look into those dates for more specifics. And also, I do understand that when it comes to our ages and things like that, we're all at different stages of our lives. Just want to say that. Okay. Neptune then has been in your 9th house since 2011, Cancer. And so a possible manifestation of this, of course, is so much about your worldviews and your deeply held beliefs. I think for many Cancerians, major changes to do with your perspectives, right? To do with your very worldviews. It's like how you see the world has changed massively. And maybe a part of how you see the world has been because of a spiritual awakening, because of enlightenment, because of some progress, to do with your emotions. Maybe a part of this even is about your religion. And so there have been significant changes to your religious beliefs, your religious principles and values. Maybe a part of it too is because of morals, right? Your moral compass, your code of ethics have really came up here and have been asking you in a way to have a look, maybe having a look based on fears. What holds you back? What is it that you're not very sure about? Maybe even a part of this too, Cancer, has been a bit of confusion, right? Maybe, hey, a possible way to look at this too is seeing through the vague and the inconsistent, unreliable spiritual gurus, this sort of stuff, especially because Saturn has been in your ninth since March of 2023. So, in a way, you've been seeing through certain distortions. You've been facing the reality of a situation, maybe tied to morality, tied to your beliefs, your worldviews. Maybe also, even a part of this is about the suffering of the world, right? The pain and the suffering that you see in the news and the media, and you just being really, really impacted by that. Or, of course, we could look at this in a different light. We can look at this as you traveling a great deal over the past number of years, or it's that you've went on significant spiritual trips, retreats. You've even met with people who share similar spiritual beliefs as you. Maybe this is about coming together with other people in a way, and it's that feeling. It's feeling connected. It's feeling stronger through this spiritual guidance. And maybe even you've went on a specific trip, you've went to a certain destination where you have experienced some interesting spiritual awakenings. You've seen something that's really impacted you on such a level where you're like, wow, okay, I cannot see the world in this way anymore. Maybe a part of it too is certain beliefs dissolving, certain beliefs that you once had just completely dissolving, and you blending with something different. And perhaps also a part of this is about forgiveness, self forgiveness. It's about compassion. Maybe even your teachings, right? The ninth house can be about our teachings and what we share and what we publish. Maybe your teachings and what you publish has strongly changed in terms of showing greater compassion, showing greater empathy, teaching from this place of, do you know what? I've seen this, I've experienced this, I've seen the pain, I've seen the suffering of society. Maybe a part of it too is wanting to rescue in some way, wanting to save the world in some way. And also, we can look at this as you taking on particular spiritual practices where it has involved deep, breath work, experiencing greater serenity, wanting to experience greater inner peace. Meditation comes through here. So we can look at this possibly as it could be you traveling to certain retreats or traveling to certain meditation classes. Just it's like you've traveled outside, or you've traveled far. You've traveled far to be a part of a spiritual situation. Could also be online, right? This could also be online. We think about broadcasting and all of that stuff to do with the ninth house. We also possibly see a manifestation of this where you've been learning a great deal about spiritual concepts and ideas, and you're trying to sort of integrate that, feel into that, sit with the meanings and the messages and the symbolism. We think about divination, for instance, astrology there, Reiki, they're working with crystals as well. A law of attraction comes into this, but whatever the case, right? Through you or by you doing greater research and wanting to understand things, maybe this is where you're wanting to take your teachings. You're wanting to sort of offer the world something based on what you've been learning there, spiritually speaking. Okay, let's now explore Jupiter through each of the signs and build on this. So at the beginning of Neptune's transit in your 9th, where was Jupiter? Jupiter was in your 10th. So really, I think this has been about a calling. I think this has been about something that's bigger than you, right? This has been about purpose, your life's work, your life's mission. Of course, with Aries, a part of this is still about being a leader, a trailblazer, a pioneer, maybe wanting to coach people or motivate people, encourage them. But there's still something here about broadening your view, widening your scope. And then naturally, Jupiter goes into the 11th from June 2011 until 2012. And so with Jupiter in your 11th in Taurus, a lot of stuff to do with the collective came up. Your collective aims, your visions for the future. Maybe a part of it was about, okay, well, this is the amount of money I want to make, or this is the living situation I want to have, or this is the sort of life that I want to live to do with my resources and my finances. Security was very much a focus, especially back then with that 11th house transit. Maybe, for instance, for some of you, it's like, well, how can I make money from my teachings? Or when it comes to the training I'm doing, what is the money that I earn from that? And then we saw possible new opportunities arise for you. So then June 2012 until 2013, Jupiter was in your 12th. So this part of the transit, I think, especially because it's a square aspect, I think Cancer, we look at this as, well, a possibility is you feeling a bit like, where do I go from here? I'm trying to think logically about, okay, well, what is it that I want about my next step? How am I even aligning with my beliefs? Maybe there was some inner turmoil, like an inner conflict a bit tied to your spiritual values, just feeling as if you were maybe pulled in all sorts of directions. And so that could have created some struggle and tension, especially mentally for you. It could have been really mentally draining and exhausting. But it was also an opportunity for you to maybe untangle your thoughts, so to speak, right? Maybe talking to people, joining a therapy group. It could also be where you journaled a lot or you got your thoughts out. So within that, of course, a lot of self-reflection, right? But then you see June of 2023 until July of 2013 until July 2014. My apologies. I'm just so used to saying 2020. Okay. June 2013 until July 2014. Maybe I'll just slow down. Jupiter was in your first. So what does that indicate? New beginnings, new chapters, new starts. You starting afresh, you starting anew, emotionally, spiritually, when it came to family, when it came to home. Maybe a part of that involved getting it out there, letting things go, getting things off your chest. July 2014 until August 2015, Jupiter was in your second. That was an opportunity, or it presented opportunities to do with your finances, especially in a more fun, playful, entertaining way, or it was about how you can show up as a leader, how you can support yourself. Maybe your values really were brought into focus back then. Valuing confidence, valuing self-assurance, valuing leadership, your authenticity, your creativity. August 2015 until September 2016, Jupiter was in your third. So in Virgo, we saw this as you gaining a deeper perspective or a deeper understanding more so to do with your education, making things practical. So if there was something that you were studying, if there was something you were learning about, you wanted to make that subject practical. Maybe it was about a lot of practice, a lot of training, seeing what worked, what didn't work. Naturally, with the opposition between Neptune in the ninth, Jupiter in the third, there was this push and pull, I think, to do with what is more practical and realistic versus what is more intuitive and idealistic. So hopefully you could have sort of blended the two. There's something about your experience that, your mind was sort of trying to consider, right? Yes, symbolism and mythology and spirituality, those things, I'm really curious about them. But how can I maybe make them more practical? How can I integrate them throughout my day? Then September 2016, October 2017, Jupiter was in the fourth. So this part of the transit could have invited relocating, new opportunities to do with housing, property, ownership. Family stuff could have really came up. Marriage could have really came up. You and your significant other moving, getting a house together. Changes within the home, imbalances within the home, trying to settle that balance a little bit, to restore that balance a little bit within your home. Then also maybe a lot of stuff to do with your own emotional needs, your own emotional security. October 2017 until November 2018, Jupiter was in the fifth. So that indeed could have invited significant changes actually to do with children and to do with your creativity, your inner child, childlikeness, play. Maybe there was a lot of intensity to do with your creative projects back then. Consider that trine with Neptune. In the ninth, a big part of that then was like, okay, well, I'm learning all of this stuff. I'm researching all of this stuff. I want to play around with my ideas. I want to really dig in and see what works. And pulling back the layers, transformation was a part of that too. The renewals, creativity renewals. Jupiter then goes into the sixth from November 2018 until December 2019. Well, we look at this then as you expanding your horizons for work, purposes, traveling for work, having to go a bit further for work reasons. Broadcasting then could have been a part of this, or publishing could have been a part of this. Maybe just a lot of responsibilities, extra responsibilities when it came to work. How it is that you even showed up online, and maybe there was some clashes there to do with your online space versus your everyday space because of the square between the ninth and the sixth. Health stuff could have also came up. How also you might have overextended yourself, went overboard a little bit. December 2019 until 2020, then Jupiter was in the seventh. So for some of you, of course, this could have looked like, just one way to look at this could have been marriage, commitment, taking things to the next level. But this could have also been somewhat tied in with maybe traveling with your significant other. Could have also been for business reasons. Business partnerships could have really came up there as an important thing to look at. There could have been significant opportunities and new chapters in a way to do with partnerships, and maybe having to face the reality of a situation within a partnership. Hard truths. Then we move on to Jupiter in the 8th and the 9th houses from December 2020 coming into 2021. And so, well, we can look at this as you taking the time to know yourself more on a deeper level, maybe to do with, okay, how do I connect with other people? How do I show up within groups and teams? Or maybe a part of it was about, okay, when it comes to intimacy, is there anything that I'm detached about? Anything that I'm unsure about? Maybe also a part of that was tied in with your sexuality or your deeper emotions or hidden emotions, what you keep private. So those things could have really been brought to light, but of course, with the intention of freeing you or helping you and you seeing things for what they were, greater clarity, diving into hidden knowledge, hidden truth, maybe receiving some kind of inheritance or some new opportunity because of shared resources. The occult really came up then, or divination came up then, astrology stuff, esoteric stuff. And of course, what do we see? April of 2022, Jupiter and Neptune were conjunct in your ninth, starting this whole new 12-year cycle. So what started back then was a new cycle to do with your worldviews, to do with your teachings, your offerings, so to speak, what you broadcast. Maybe also legal matters came up. Having to face the reality of a certain legal situation, but also spiritual insights, travel. Travel could have been a big part of this, wanting to open yourself up to a new travel experience. And again, like I said, a lot of this could have been about your beliefs, your belief systems, your worldviews. So then we come back around, right? And Jupiter re-enters the 10th in Aries, December 2022 until May 2023. So a new cycle begins. And so it's almost as if you then started to bring these new concepts or this new realization about your spiritual beliefs or about your worldviews, and you kind of brought them forward. You carried them over into that of your career, recognition, the public. So it's almost like those new discoveries that came through, they influenced and sort of shaped this newfound version of yourself, this new way of showing up within your career. And then May of 2023 until 2024, Jupiter goes back into the 11th. And so we see, possibly new friendships forming, new groups you're a part of, different communities you're a part of. Again, could have been based on those spiritual epiphanies or realizations that came through April 2022 about that. Or this could be about, actually, I want to make money in a different way now. The way I view this group scenario is different now. And it's more so based on my own spiritual values, principles, morals. So let's try a different approach. Security could have been a big part of that. And then I wonder to myself, is it that some of you decided once and for all, hey, we're going to move. We're going to move, and we're moving because it's for a better life, or it's for more resources, or it's for better security, whatever it may be. Okay, then we come to today. Jupiter's in your 12th. Now, the dates that you see before you, it's about Neptune in Pisces in combination with Jupiter. So with Jupiter now in the 12th, we come back around and we think about the greater self-reflection and the contemplation. And we also see with the square between Saturn in your 9th, right? The transit of Saturn. So Saturn in the 9th square this Neptune influence, this Jupiter influence in the 12th, you may be feeling a bit like you're stuck or you're lost or you're at a crossroads. It's those questions of, where do I go from here? What is my next step forward when it comes to my career path, when it comes to, education? What I want to learn about, what excites me, what interests me, what am I curious about? Higher education being a big part of this, perhaps. So there is a bit of the tension, but time will move, right? And what do we see? Jupiter will re-enter your sign. Jupiter will go into your sign June of 2025. And so with this combination a little bit, I think, between a part of Neptune in your 9th and Jupiter in your 1st, we are closing off Neptune in Pisces with this New chapter. It is. It's a new chapter of self. It's a new chapter tied to your identity, tied to where you live, your family. Family stuff is really coming up here. Strong family themes. Strong themes to do with travel experiences, belonging, your sense of security, your inner security, emotional support. Thank you so much, Cancer. And now on to Leo. All right, so Leo, let's talk about this Neptune and Pisces transit for you. I'm going to say this. Yes, Neptune has been in your 8th house since 2011. And this transit, Neptune in the 8th house, it definitely can come with its challenges. I think any Neptune transit can come with its challenges. Though I think a part of the challenges here for you has been so much about your own mental health, your own mental well-being. And I say that especially because Pisces is also tied to the unknown, the unconscious, hidden truths, especially in the 8th house. So, for many of you Leos, you've been gradually, slowly pulling back the layers to do with your psyche, your psychology, why you do the things you do. And maybe throughout the process, you've been confronted by your fears, by your phobias. Maybe also what has came through here is that you've had to face harsh truths, harsh realities, especially with Saturn being in your 8th house since March of 2023. Having to just sort of sit with the reality of a situation, maybe about intimacy, vulnerability, trusting other people, slowly opening up, learning to maybe share and open up with yourself. I think a lot of this even has been about your heart. How has even your heart been hurt? How has it been broken? What maybe past situations have happened for you? Is it that you've been deceived, let down, disappointed in some way, shape, or form? Then I also consider here this blending of materials, this blending of resources where you and possibly a significant other, you're combining your resources. But that within itself has perhaps been quite tricky. Tricky in that perhaps there has been moments of wishful thinking, being overly idealistic, or this could be where you felt deceived, you felt let down, being manipulated at certain points. But then I also think that with, again, Saturn being in your 8th since March of 2023, the reality of situations have been faced. And that, I think, has been a good way for you to look within, to even set healthy boundaries between you and other people. Maybe a part of it is about your emotional wellness, right? Being very, very much, well, very serious about your emotional boundaries. And also, we can look at this as so much of your dreams and your visions coming through. Maybe this has been a really intuitive time for many of you Leos, thinking about divination, the occult, hidden knowledge, hidden truths, and how that stuff, the symbolism stuff, perhaps has been really good for you in terms of your own self-development, getting clear, especially with Saturn in the 8th. But then I also equally think that this has been a transit that's brought up a lot of stuff to do with the past. The past. And if it is that any projections have unfolded within your intimate relationships, I think this has been your opportunity to take back what is yours and to maybe assess the past a little bit, your childhood, and go, oh, this is why I find it difficult to trust this person, or this is why I find it difficult to open up in a way, because when I look to the past, this is what happened. I didn't feel seen. I didn't feel like I was really valued in that moment. So pulling back the layers, right? Really pulling back the layers. But it's also been a massively creative transit, I think. Massively creative. Very good for movies and music, writing, drawing from your hidden talents and gifts, tapping into your imagination, dance, poetry, art. Yeah, yeah. And throughout the process, just experiencing so many transformations. And I think that's a part of it where you've been channeling, right? You've been channeling your intense emotions into things like poetry and art and beauty and music. Escapism is also a big part of this. Maybe having to address within yourself when you escape, when that's maybe extreme, the extremes of escapism, the extremes of solitude and isolation, and separating yourself from other people, maybe because there are some fears to address there. Maybe it's been about embracing the unknown a little bit, addressing possibly the pain. Yeah, addressing pain. But equally, hey, you know what? Being interested in healing and greater compassion and integration, addressing your blind spots, seeking greater wholeness, and exploring these mystical sides of life. Inner faith has been massive for you. And maybe this is a big part of the power of your eighth house journey so far with Neptune in the eighth. A big part of this is about having inner faith, trusting in the process, your spiritual guidance. Okay, so let's go through these dates. And as I go through these, just remember that these are estimates. Look to retrogrades, remember retrogrades, and I do also get that we're all at different stages of our lives. Okay, so whenever Neptune first entered your eighth, Jupiter was in your ninth. So that was from April until June 2011. So the beginning of this transit was invited you to open yourself up to a new world of self-discovery. Massive. This, I think, when we consider the opening stages of the transit, yeah, this has been a transit so much about your desires to want to learn more, to grow, to travel, to explore the unknown. It's been a wild and crazy adventure for many Leos. Maybe a part of Jupiter in the ninth was about you moving abroad, was you studying abroad, or it was somehow about your beliefs and just being open to something new, a new passion, being excited about a different chapter, a new chapter, maybe tied to higher education or your worldviews. Then June 2011 until 2012, Jupiter was in your 10th. And so we could have seen perhaps different opportunities, forms of growth and expansion to do with success, accomplishment, achievement, setting yourself up for the long term, thinking about, your finances and your physical security. And then June 2012 until 2013, Jupiter was in your 11th. That part of the transit then invited you to be curious about groups and clubs and teams, togetherness, making a difference within the world. Networking could have been a big part of it. But of course, with that square between Jupiter and Neptune, maybe things were a bit challenging. Maybe fears came up. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm getting really triggered by this or emotional about this within this friendship situation. Maybe you had to separate yourself from certain friends, for instance. Then we come to June 2013 until July 2014. Jupiter's in the 12th. Oh my gosh, that period for you, massive for self-reflection, contemplation, going within, solitude. Of course, that could also have indicated more forms of escapism, hiding, going into your shell, right? Retreating, stuff to do with Cancer. And whilst, yes, maybe there were some challenging moments and it was very emotional and, just so much came up to the surface for you, especially to do with family matters, things like that. But whilst all of that was happening, it was so incredibly insightful. So incredibly insightful. And then July 2014 until August 2015, Jupiter, boom, goes into the first house in your sign, Leo. So with this, right, a new perspective, new beginnings, maybe feeling a bit like, do you know what? This is the next step for me. Do you know what? I took some time to really feel into my emotional needs or my pain and stuff to do with family, stuff to do with the past. Now it's time to enjoy myself. Now it's time to have some fun. Let's get on the dating scene. Let's enjoy myself, right? Just all of this stuff to do with enjoyment tied to Leo. But also, this could have involved travel or self discovery or just something new, something vibrant, something enthusiastic about your identity. August 2015 until September 2016, of course, Jupiter goes into the second. And so we see here perhaps you being quite open to change, to do with your finances and your resources, a certain skill that maybe you started to perfect a little bit, practice a little bit, refining your skills, refining your talents, or maybe entering into a new job, a new role. And so you did that because it was like, right, okay, this is going to make me more money. This is going to make my life easier. I'm doing it. But then equally, we also want to think about the opposition between Neptune in the eighth and then the second house influence of Jupiter. So we could also look at this as slight challenges to do with self-worth, to do with your self-esteem. Where do I go from here? Intimate partners could have been a little bit like, oh, I'm not really seeing things clearly. I'm giving into addictive tendencies a bit here. I'm attaching too strongly to certain um, emotional habits here. How can I get out of this cycle, this emotional cycle, this habit of mine? So hopefully, that part of the transit with Jupiter in your second could have invited greater improvement. Just, hey, you know what? It's like, hey, this isn't good for me. It's unhealthy. I'm getting rid of it. I'm not doing it anymore. Moving on. September 2016 until October 2017, Jupiter was in your third. So maybe, hey, this could have invited a new approach or a different approach to do with learning, studying. Maybe a part of it was about higher education, higher learning, just knowledge in general, right? But more so weighing out your options, possibly trying out to do a few different areas, being curious about a few different subjects, or this could have been about you more so focusing on communicating within relationships, having to really think about, well, how am I communicating within my relationships? How can I be a bit more fair and diplomatic and tactful when it comes to communication? Maybe there was some interesting opportunities that happened to do with communication and smaller communities. Social media, of course, could have been a part of that. So yeah, new opportunities to do with those areas. But then October 2017 until November 2018, Jupiter was in the fourth. This part of the transit was heavy. A lot of stuff to do with the past came up, a lot of truths, a lot of having to face the shadow, to face your fears. Maybe having that difficult conversation with your father, with your mother. Grief could have been a part of it. Loss could have been a part of it. Going into the past. I really seeing, okay, well, what isn't working here? Breaking cycles, right? Transformation, renewals to do with family and home, trusting yourself, trusting in your emotional needs, supporting yourself emotionally. And then November 2018 until December 2019, Jupiter was in your fifth. And so I actually think that part of the transit actually invited something a bit more vibrant and fresh to do with fun and adventure and play and travel. Maybe you wanting to make new travel plans and you recognizing, hey, you know what? I've never done this before. I want to go there. I want to just open myself up to new horizons and going with it, being quite excitable about it all. Naturally, of course, with the square to the eighth house, I mean, sure, perhaps it was also about, oh, well, there's still other priorities I have, maybe when it comes to intimate relationships or debts and loans and things I need to repay. So that could have been a bit of a challenging point in terms of your spending habits or how you might be overdoing it. having to sort of pay something off first before you go off on that trip. But hey, you could have really went for it, Leo. December 2019 until 2020, Jupiter was in your 6th. Right. This is where we see those opportunities to do with your work ethic, your productivity, maybe wanting to put different building blocks in place, different foundations and structures in place to do with your work, services, to do with your daily habits and routines, taking things a bit more seriously there, Leo. Then we come into December 2020 until 2021. And of course, Jupiter was in both the 7th and the 8th houses for you. So sure, we can look at this as some new opportunities or growth or expansion to do with relationships and partnerships. Of course, this could have been, right, I want to be a part of this community. I want to join it. I want to join this club. I want to join this movement. I want to join this cause or charity. Or this could have been more of a one-to-one thing. Sort of like being introduced to something through one other person, and then boom, you're in a network, you're in a team. Or this could, so of course it could have been business related, right? Business partnerships. But it could also be related to relationships and marriage and questions about the future. Even if it's not marriage, it's still about partnership. It's still this question of, well, commitment and what are we? Just new opportunities there. And then we also noticed that April 2022 ushered in a new 12-year cycle within your 8th house. So the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction in your 8th house really brought a new cycle to do with this shared resource stuff, joint financial planning stuff. What's mine, what's yours, sharing. But also a greater look into intimacy, vulnerability, emotional bonding, secrecy, privacy, what you want to keep to yourself, but what do you want to share? What is private versus what is secret? Or maybe looking at a newfound vision or inspiration or fascination to do with divination, to do with the occult, right? Some newfound insight, this fresh spiritual insight. Maybe a part of it even involved loss or grief, being so close to a loss, or being wakened up out of a hopeless situation, possibly. And then we see that by December 2022 until May 2023, okay, sure, there's still the overlaps of December 2021, 2022, but I digress. Jupiter goes into the 9th in Aries. So there's still a part of that's throughout 2022, but still the new cycle begins, right? We come back to the 9th, we come back to Aries. And so it's almost as if your worldviews, your self-beliefs, they're influenced, they are shaped by those spiritual insights that came through, tied to loss, tied to grief, tied to divination and the occult. And then you think to yourself, okay, well, a new vision here, a new goal here, a new opportunity to grow, to travel, to expand. And by May 2023 until 2024, boom, Jupiter's back in the 10th. And so maybe this then invited more of a bigger perspective, a wider perspective about your physical security and success, status, reputation. Maybe, for example, really taking in another person's needs, right? It's also considering, okay, well, my intimate partner, okay, well, I need to be able to afford X, Y, and Z, right, with the 8th house influence. And then May 2024 until March 2025, well, do you know what? We'll just skip the dates here because there are some overlaps because of Neptune going into Aries this year, but just think of it as today, Jupiter's in your 11th. And we have been noticing greater growth and expansion so far to do with networks and teams. And maybe a part of it has been based on greater vulnerability. But you see, we've also been seeing the square, right? With Saturn also in your eighth, there have been some blockages, I think, some challenges. And perhaps those challenges are somehow tied to trust, honesty. Perhaps those challenges are somehow tied to fears of being let down or disappointed. Or a part of this is about confusion or feeling a bit directionless in terms of, well, what is it that I want in terms of groups and friendships, networks and teams. But what you will find is that the visions and the clarity that you're seeking is going to become it's going to be a bit more vivid and clear whenever the square isn't so strong, okay? And then naturally so just to give dates, by the way, that is going to be over the next couple of months or so. And then lastly, we have here Jupiter will enter into Cancer June of 2025. And to end, right? So to end the transit of Neptune being in your eighth, Jupiter's back in the 12th. So you're coming out of the Neptune and Pisces transit from this place of greater introspection, exploring the unknown, maybe just taking some extra time to get right with your emotional needs, what it is that you're craving deep down. There's that spiritual honesty and there's that spiritual truth really coming through here for you, Leo. Thank you so much, Leo. And now on to Virgo. All right, so Virgo, let's talk about the Neptune and Pisces transit for you. What's been happening since 2011? Okay, so firstly, I just want to say this. With the dates that you see before you, there's definitely going to be overlaps because you got to think about retrogrades and things like that. So yes, that's one thing. And also another thing is I do understand that we're all at different stages of our lives when we consider these stories. Okay. So Neptune has been transiting your seventh house since 2011, Virgo. What has this ushered in for you? First thing coming through here is that you've been not seeing things all that very clearly within relationships and partnerships. And you've been having to dissolve certain parts of your own perception, so to speak, within relationships. So, how you see them, almost like you've been really changing your perspectives and having to address any wishful thinking, maybe being overly idealistic. It's the whole wearing rose colored glasses, but it's also about disappointment. It's about people who have let you down. It's about untangling yourself from emotional enmeshment where you become so caught up in other people's problems, the woes of other people, so much so that you forget yourself. You give so much of yourself to other people that you don't really consider what you need, right? Your personal goals, your personal needs. Don't get me wrong now. This has also been a great way for you to practice greater compassion towards others and for you to be selfless and caring about other people, supporting other people. And then equally, when we think about these one-to-one relationships tied to the seventh, we've been seeing the support and the care from others towards you in some ways. And maybe even a part of this is, okay, sure, you getting into relationships where there has been deception, there's been deceit, you've given people the benefit of the doubt, you've just seen the good bits in other people, and then later on you have been disappointed, you've been let down, you've been deceived and stuff like that. But we could also look at this as you attracting people who are genuine, who are compassionate. Maybe they've been on their own healing journey, they've done their own inner work. So a lot of this stuff is about relationships. It is about one-to-one partnerships. Maybe even a small part of this transit has been lies and deceit to do with business partnerships, right? Where perhaps you've been let down by a friend or a business partner. So the contract or the agreement wasn't so clear, or you were deceived. Or we could look at this as you being called in a way to embrace the shadow part of you, Virgo. And the shadow part of you, of course, it's messy, it's chaotic, it's being able to let your guard down, it's being able to go with the flow and not be so controlled and put together all the time. Surrendering to the unknown when it comes to relationships is a big theme here. And instead of sort of feeling like you need to have an answer for everything or like you need to have it all figured out. So integrating these parts of the shadow. And maybe even just another thing to mention here is it's about embracing greater escapism, embracing more time in solitude, to be able to let go, to also maybe even address where you might be burying your head in the sand, because that could be a part of the shadow, where you might be fooling yourself, where you might be deceiving yourself about other people, convincing yourself about all sorts of things in terms of what other people think of you and how they might be judging you. But that within itself could be deception. Deception. Okay, so now we have addressed this seventh house influence. Let's go through these dates. Right, so Jupiter, then at the beginning of this transit, Jupiter was in your eighth from April until June 2011. So, opening the transit, we saw this intensity, this fiery part of you come up, this part of you that may have felt very strongly about intimacy, about connection. Maybe there were some themes here to do with leadership, anger, self assertion, independence, bravery, but maybe in a bit of an uncomfortable way. Sort of like, oh, well, I have to sacrifice a part of myself here, surrender a part of myself here. And that annoys me, right? It's like, annoys me that I have to do that. Maybe without realizing it at the time, of course. But anyway, then we move on to June 2011 until 2012. Jupiter was in the ninth. So we could look at this as you going on a trip, you traveling for work reasons, to earn money. We could look at this as you going to university, you taking on a different course. And do you know what? Maybe because of those travel experiences, because of the educational experiences, perhaps there was a part of you that was sort of like, oh, well, I don't want to let them down. I don't want to disappoint them. Because I just think Neptune in the seventh, of course, there is that opposition, right? Because the seventh house is involved, Neptune is opposing you. It's almost like there's so much focus on other people, worries about other people's emotions. And this is a theme, I think, that's happened for you over these years. But let's continue on. June 2012 until 2013, we could have seen you making major changes or taking on new opportunities to do with your career. Maybe being a bit open minded about a new project or a new role, a new position. Maybe a part of it did involve educating yourself more, learning more, being recognized in some way, shape, or form for your intelligence. Or this could have been just more so about new opportunities to do with your purpose and your life path in general, your life's work. These things were tied in with the next step. And perhaps because of the square between Neptune in the seventh and then Jupiter in the 10th, hey, you could have felt a little bit guilty, or you could have felt like what you wanted to do career-wise or professional-wise clashed in some way, shape, or form with your partner. June 2013 until July 2014, Jupiter then was in your 11th. And so this part of the transit could actually have invited stronger themes to do with friendships and togetherness, feeling safe, feeling supported within friendships and communities. Maybe that was a big priority for you. But then again, there could have also been some messes that came up, or some defense mechanisms perhaps, or having to retreat, having to go within yourself, having to protect yourself slightly. But there was still opportunities, right? Opportunities for growth to do with friendships and networks and teams. Then we come to July of 2014 until August in 2015. Jupiter then was in your 12th. And that's an interesting one, because I think this could have indicated the hidden enemy stuff coming through, or your blind spot being activated. So, for instance, if it was at any point that you tried to separate, that you tried to individuate, maybe there were some people who were aggravated, who were annoyed and upset with you. Or it's that you could have been struggling on your own behind the scenes, maybe to do with a child situation, a creativity matter, a confidence matter. Maybe you felt quite alone. You just wanted to hide away. There could have been a lot that came through for you whenever you took some time to retreat. Maybe you just needed some you time, honestly. You needed some you time, and maybe that could have clashed with other people. They didn't perhaps agree with you doing that, but you still did it anyway. Could have also been an opportunity for greater spiritual growth, right? Then we come to August 2015 until September 2016, and Jupiter is in your sign, Virgo. So a new chapter, starting over, maybe new chapters to do with work, new chapters to do with your identity, your services, your health, how you saw yourself. Indeed, new beginnings. But naturally, with the opposition to Neptune in the 7th, this could have also been about you not seeing things super clearly, being taken advantage of, maybe, or manipulated or deceived. Or again, we go back to just wearing those rose-colored glasses within relationships. And that could have been a bit of a challenge, of course. But hopefully we could also look at this as you being able to return to, what do I want? What are my priorities? How am I seeing this situation? How can I sit back and just not give in to this mess? But of course, we could also look at this as major changes to your body back then. New opportunities tied to your identity. And like I said, work and service could have been a massive part of that. September 2016 until October 2017, Jupiter was in your 2nd. And so that part of the transit could have really changed your views to do with your values, to do with your priorities, right? Maybe a part of it was about trying to weigh all your options when it came to your finances, when it came to your resources, how you earn money. Maybe it's that you took on a new skill or a talent. And then October 2017 until November 2018, Jupiter was in your 3rd. So that part of the transit could have brought up a lot to do with your mind, how you talk to yourself, the information you feed yourself. Or it could have been a great time for investigation and research and study, digging deep into certain knowledge and information, dissecting information. And perhaps a part of that too was somehow related with you wanting to understand yourself, wanting to explore the unknown. Because I think with Neptune in your seventh, this has been where Virgo, you've truly been changing in terms of your spiritual values, your spiritual qualities and interests. November 2018 until December 2019, Jupiter was in your fourth. So, well, that's interesting to consider. And I'm actually reflecting upon this for myself a little bit because I do have a Virgo rising. But maybe this part of the transit indicated a time of travel, relocating, spending some time in a different country, needing some time away from other people, or just wanting to feel free from within, needing to get away from a certain relationship, a certain partnership which wasn't very healthy for you, of course, because Neptune does make that square to Jupiter there when we think about Jupiter in the fourth, Neptune in the seventh. December 2019 until 2020. Well, what a beautiful time then for you, Virgo, to get to work when it came to your creativity, your creative projects. I think here a little bit about how I really went for it when it came to my eBooks and my astrology journey, the creativity that's been involved in that. And of course, hey, we could also look at this as new opportunities to do with children, to do with fun and play, and maybe having to create greater structure there, to be somewhat more responsible there. Then we move on to December 2020 until 2021, and Jupiter then goes into the 6th and the 7th houses. So we arrive to this point and we see here growth and development and expansion to do with your routines, your schedules, having to experiment with new ways of doing things, new strategies, innovation, but also maybe being open to change when it came to teamwork. Maybe a part of your work and your services was about heavily involving other people. So yes, being open to the new there. And then we arrive to April of 2022. And what do we see? We see a new 12-year cycle begin in your seventh. So that's so fascinating because that could indicate that you experienced what felt like a turning point within your relationships. So, of course, one way to look at this could be you seeing things for what they were, or you coming to this realization about relationships in terms of, right, what do I want from this? What is my intuition trying to tell me about this? And that could have been in a more beneficial light or in a more challenging light. Of course, it depends on your personal chart and everything. But there was a new cycle that started, a new relationship cycle, whether that be getting closer to another or departing from another, exploring the shadow, exploring the unconscious more so too. And then we see that Jupiter, boom, Jupiter goes back into the 8th and starting this whole new cycle again, right, in Aries. So when we think about 2022 until 2023, you carrying over those lessons to do with relationships and partnerships into that of, oh, I can really see how I'm keeping myself back. Oh, I can really see how my self-assertion has changed, or how I might be getting in my own way when it comes to self-assertion. All the transformational stuff to do with the 8th house. Transformations to do with your identity, your independence, and like I said, self-assertion, courage, bravery, psychological bravery in many respects, Virgo. Then Jupiter goes back into the 9th from May 2023 until 2024. And we see here then you perhaps taking things to the next level when it came to your studies, when it came to your higher education, furthering your understanding about things. A lot of a lot of stuff to do with publications and to do with broadcasting and publishing and reprioritizing these areas in a large way. Maybe again, it's sort of based on, okay, well, these are the spiritual experiences that occurred for me when it came to my relationships and partnerships. And I want to maybe earn money from my publications based on what came up there, based on those spiritual values that came through. And then, of course, we arrive to today. We arrive to today, and Jupiter is in your 10th. And I think many of you Virgos can sense that change is on the horizon here, to do with your career, to do with status and recognition and success and your life's work and all of that stuff. You can sense that. But I also, of course, want to acknowledge that with Saturn making the square, right? Saturn is in your 7th, Neptune is also there. There is the square between Saturn and Jupiter. There is a bit of this resistance right now. And a part of it involves clients, customers, managers, bosses, your career path. A part of it involves collaborations, commitment, partnerships, relationships, just feeling a bit like, oh, I'm stuck, I'm at a crossroads, where do I go from here? But naturally, things will start to move, right? As Jupiter moves, Saturn moves, etc. But it's still seeing that Jupiter in your 10th has been ushering in new opportunities, these new opportunities of expansion to do with your professional lives, maybe tied to teaching or marketing or research. And then we see that Jupiter will enter your 11th, June of 2025. And the dates that you see before you, it's just more about Neptune and Pisces mixed with Jupiter. But basically, all of this is to say that to close the transit of Neptune in your 7th, Jupiter will be in your 11th. And so we're going to see you experiencing greater expansion and growth to do with communities. Maybe for some of you Virgos, it's finding a community of like-minded people. It's feeling comfortable and safe within a friendship situation. It's taking things to the next level when it comes to friendships and teams and groups and organizations. Feeling like you're a part of something that's bigger than yourself, and hopefully then feeling like, you know what, yeah, I'm spiritually aligned and emotionally, this feels right. Thank you so much, Virgo. And we are going to finish this video here. We're just going to do it similar to how I did it with Pluto in Aquarius. We're going to just look at Aries through Virgo in this one. And then in the next video, we'll do Libra through Pisces. Thank you for your patience, all of you who are waiting for Libra through Pisces. But ultimately, thank you so much for listening. If you would like to book a reading with me, you can visit my website, hannahselsewhere.com. And if you did benefit from your reading today, you can always buy me a coffee. But with that, I just want to say thank you for watching again, and I will talk to you in the next video. Bye, everyone.